verses 22 through 33. Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. And when evening came, he was alone. But by this time the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the shore, far from the land, for the wind was against them. And early in the morning he came walking toward them on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost!" And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I, and do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." So he said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and started walking on the water and came toward Jesus. But when he noticed a strong wind, he became frightened and began to sink. And he cried out, "Lord, save me." So Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." This is the gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now a message from our youth leader, Mr. Quinn Robinson, who, by the way, is going to be attending Hillside College, Hillsdale, which is in Michigan, and he's going to get his bachelor's in Christian ministry. So we're excited about that, and hopefully go out to be a pastor somewhere in one of these non-denominational churches. I said, don't go to any seminaries. Don't go to the seminaries. So good to see you, Quinn. Thank you.
How's everyone doing? Good?
Yeah.
It's nice out.
Yeah.
It's a benefit of.
It's been a beautiful summer so far, isn't that right, folks? I'll tell you.
Absolutely. Now, when they do this weird thing at my gym where they make us wear masks when we work out, even when we do the cardio, and that's a bit much, as you can imagine. But what I notice is I do this thing because the elliptical's right by the window, so I get to watch everyone have fun in the pool while I'm working out. And so it's kind of a good motivation to be like, all right, I get a swim body, then I can go out there into the pool, right? But you know, I'm kind of toward this window so no one can see me. So I kind of, you know, pull the mask down to my chin a little bit, you know, kind of fake it. Everyone outside behind me sees the loop, so I'm like, I'm good. But it like, you know, if it's sitting on your chin and you're working out, doing exercises, like as soon as you take that mask off, it's like a gallon of sweat just comes out. It's horrible. It's a mess. And so I've been having to work around that, and I'm sure everyone's been kind of working around some new stuff. But I was actually wondering, like, oh, what am I gonna? I want to talk about something funny today, and then I didn't really have anything, and then this morning God gives me something. So it was like it got right outside pretty early this morning, for at least on my side of the apartment building, and my blinds are not that great. We have like these little like twist blinds, those little ones that kind of fold in like that. They never work that well. You can see out of them all the time anyway, and the light comes through. And they have these old like little stud things where they put the old blinds, those big like, you know, bar blinds. And so sometimes when it gets really, really light in my room, I'll take kind of one of those fluffy blankets I have that can hook onto something like that, and I just hook it on over. So this morning, I wake up maybe 2 hours before I wanted to get up, and for me that's a nightmare, right? And so I'm sitting there in my bed writhing like, oh, this is so bad, it's so light out. And I'm rolling back and forth, and you know, if you're tired, you know, you try to do that like with the least amount of effort to get the results you want. So first, facing the pillow, no light there, but then you get uncomfortable, you gotta move, then there's light. I get so frustrated not able to go back to sleep for like an hour or so into this. And so then I'm so frustrated that I get up and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna put this blanket over this and I'm going right back to bed. So I'm frustrated, I stand up on my bed, and I got this blanket, and I'm going, and it's not working, and I'm like, shoot. And then I look out the window, I'm seeing people leaving, going to do their thing in this parking lot. And then I look down and I realize I was so frustrated in trying to put this thing up in front of the window, I realized I wasn't exactly dressed for the occasion, if you know what I mean. And so this crazy, tired man just in his window dancing around like this with a blanket, and completely just how God made me. And I was just trying to do it. And then I realized, I'm like, this is way too early for this. And so I finally get it latched on. I'm lying in my bed, and I'm so just wired up from that moment of realizing that everyone might have seen me that I couldn't fall asleep anyway, even though the room was dark. So that's how my morning started. So God is good. He gives me things to talk about. So there's a verse that has been on my heart a lot, and I wanted to talk about that today. It's Matthew 5:13 through 16, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with this. The imagery I find very inspiring, especially with everything going on today. So I'm going to read it for you. It says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand and give it light to all the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." I love that imagery of this dynamic of this light and salt kind of coming in together. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. And so we're called to be this light. Now, light we're called to be because it's set apart from the darkness, right? Light is a very big contrast. It's the very contrast to darkness. We're called to be a town on a hill, one that can't be hidden. And I love that imagery because a city in the distance on a hill, to me, when I think of that imagery, it's this promise of a sanctuary, of security. It's a safe point in a storm. It's kind of a refuge from the wilderness and aimless travel. We see when, throughout the Bible, when God's people are not quite ready for something He's willing to do, when their hearts are not set on Him, they wander for a while. That's a pretty common thing. And so, a lot of people today, I feel, are not quite sure exactly what they're doing, what's going on, and so there's a lot of this wandering in the wilderness, and so this kind of idea of a city on a hill, imagine someone lost in the woods and they just see this bright city on this hill. It's got to be a great feeling, some order in a chaotic situation. And one that's set on a hill is this contrast against the horizon. If you think about a hill with a city on it, just like right there in the center with a backdrop of just sky, really nothing else in the way, nothing to kind of take your attention away from that city. And it made me think of, Josh and I, we used to love doing airsoft, right? I used to really get into that. We used to go into the woods and shoot each other up all day. It was a lot of fun. And Josh and I would always be on a team, and we'd take it super seriously. And so I would get all these books, like sniper manuals for the Army, because I'm 14 and I need to just be a lethal killing machine against Josh. Actually, we're pretty much always on the same team. And so what I learned in that book is that snipers, they learn not to put themselves on a horizon line, because no matter how camouflaged you are, you silhouette against the night sky. And so at all costs, they try to avoid that, to not be spotted. But interestingly enough, as followers of Christ, we're called to be easy to spot, to stand out. So we need to do the exact opposite. We need to be that contrast. Think about the night sky as the world that we live in. We're called to be apart from the world, to stand out. And so, unlike a sniper who's trying to hide, we're called to be that contrasting image. And so, something that, a focal point for people, right? People are looking around saying, well, I don't know what's working for me, what's working for other people. And they see someone that's put together, that's got their life, at least somewhat in order, or they're working toward it, and they're happy, they've got this, spirit of hope, and then they're wondering, well, what's working for them, right? That's what we got to be. We got to be that aim point, the thing that stands out for people. And so, like we talked about, many are feeling lost or unsure and seeking meaning, and we can be this positive aid to that feeling. We can help bring them toward that solution if we emulate the idea of a city on a hill. And in doing that, we can be a positive example, so that no matter what we do, we can bring God into the equation. Because no matter how, if we like it or not, we're a living advertisement for who or whatever rules our hearts. No matter what we do, what's in charge of who we are and how we orient ourselves, that's going to be out there for everyone to see. We can't really hide that. And that comes through in how we interact with each other, how we deal with situations. If you've ever seen someone you don't really know handling a difficult situation very badly, you kind of learn a lot about a person by seeing their temper tantrums,
Yeah.
And so, we're called to really let who we are shine through in everything we do. because that light that shines through should reflect Christ if we're followers of Christ. And what we do is we show the blessings that a walk with God brings in our lives and everything we do. So imagine like a neon sign. Every other sign around is just like paper, and nothing really doesn't catch your eye. But imagine like a neon sign in the window really just captures your attention. That's kind of what we need to do. We need Christ to be written on ourselves like a neon sign, so everyone can see, oh, this person loves Christ, right? That's something we need to show without ever needing to say it, right? Doing it in action as well as in word. And so God's word is placed in our lives. It's a good thing, right? Having the Bible to help us work through how to navigate this crazy world that we live in, how to have a relationship with God, that's super important. And I'm sure we've all had nights where we're lying in bed and we're overwhelmed, and when we go to God and we have a prayer and it completely solves that anxiety in us and we feel at peace. I mean, these are good things, objectively good things in our lives. And what's beautiful about that light is that as it grows in our lives, as we walk with God, that light only gets bigger and brighter for us in our lives. And since this light is a beautiful thing and it's a net benefit to us and those around us, we shouldn't be intimidated into shrouding our light, putting it under that bowl, like in that verse we were reading. Because this light is a benefit and it helps us to navigate life, right? Imagine like a lantern. Why would you want to walk through corridor after corridor blind, having to feel around when you can have light to help you through it? It brings us warmth, brings us joy. It helps to illuminate things that are difficult in our lives. And then when we emulate this light, we can also bring that kind of thing to other people's lives, right? If we can be a benefit to others, be caring, be illuminating to other people, help them see such beauty in God that we see every single day. And so we can emulate this light and be that for people. And there are these people that their eyes are sensitive to this light because they've been living in this darkness for so long. And so we can't let those people that live in darkness, they're not used to this light, try to push us into covering up our glow just because it might be difficult for them. Because, this light, like we said, it's a good thing, and so, just because it's uncomfortable for some people doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, right? We tend to get into this, especially in the modern age, we tend to think of, good is pleasing and bad is, difficult. And yet, what the Bible teaches us is that some of those difficult things in the world are actually the best things in the world for us. And so instead of allowing ourselves to be kind of bullied into hiding this glow, only representing Christ when we're at church, basically keep it in the building kind of thing. No, it's a relationship, it's a lifestyle for every single day. And so instead of covering ourselves up, we need to stand strong upon our lampstands and not be hidden. And that might be difficult. People are going to try to oppose you. They're going to try to shut that down because, like we said, it's difficult. We've been living in darkness for so long. They see that, and it kind of hurts at times. And so we have to be tactful, and we have to be patient and help those in darkness adjust to the light. When people come up against us and oppose us, instead of saying, okay, I'm just going to back off, say, okay, well, let me help you adjust to this so you can actually enjoy the message of Christ instead of shutting it down. So that means we do have to be patient. That means that we do have to be kind of tactful, unique, kind of, they say, as dangerous as a snake, as innocent as a dove. We got to have the potential to, be a little crafty in how we get the message across. And, we're called to be a light. We're called to truth. And so, light, it illuminates. So we're called to be an illuminator of this truth, of God's word. We're called to, in our actions, illuminate the truth of the gospel. And, we're not called to be obscure. We're not called to hide the message of God from people in our actions. Because think about, it seems kind of like, I don't know, tolerant might be a good word of it, which is like, okay, I'm going to just not push my agenda or my belief system when I walk out of church. It's like, well, what you're actually doing is robbing people of the joys and the blessings of God because you're a vessel for that. You're something. So it's kind of like having a tap that has gold coming out of it. It's like, well, I'm just going to turn this off. It's like, why would you do that? Give it to as many people as you can. And so, that's the light side of it. And now we're going to kind of move into the salt of the earth kind of, which is an interesting one. I always found the idea of the concept of being salt of the earth kind of an interesting topic. And, salt is very important, obviously. It's very important to our history. I would argue that if we had more salt around, my ankle would be a little better off. But, so I love salt. I think we should have more salt. In fact, I might have salt in my trunk now, so I could just, as I'm walking, just so I can have a pathway to my from my car to my apartment. And then Josh, would you like to come up with the board?
Hey, Josh.
This is my favorite shirt Josh owns, and it's not because I gave it to him. All right. So we're talking about salt and light. I was thinking I might need a bigger eraser. Does anyone have a rag or paper towel? Thank you. Yeah, this is. Oh, that's a magnet, not an eraser. That's probably one. Look, I appreciate you letting me fall on that sword, Josh.
There you go.
Thank you. My easel is very nice. So today we're talking about. I'm going to forget about that for now. Salt. Right. First, we're going to go through each letter of salt and figure out why salt is so important to us on a spiritual level as far as emulating salt. So the first one is S, which is sustaining. Salt is sustaining. Now, salt is an effective preservative. It's been used for thousands of years, all the way back to the Egyptians. One of those things that I wonder, how the heck did we figure that out? Did like a dude fall into a salt pit and then he died and then they found him like 20 years later and it looks exactly the same? Like, look at his pores, they're immaculate. I never figured out, like there are a lot of those things where I'm like, the combustion engine, for example, someone must have been hurt figuring that one out, right? There are a lot of things in this world where I'm like, someone must have accidentally bumped into this. There's no way they could have done it on purpose. So how that works, though, is it removes moisture. And so moisture is what allows bacteria to start growing. So salt removes that and allows us to store food for long times without refrigeration. And that was crucial to our development as humans and in society. The frontier, imagine trying to pave the frontier with your meat going bad every 5 seconds. Salting has been crucial to almost everything humans have been doing. And just as salt preserves food, we must also preserve our faith and the validity of Scripture. That's why we're called to be the salt of the earth. Because we're tasked with the preservation of our faith. That's our job to do. And doing that, we need to live it and teach it uprightly and unwaveringly. Think about a prime cut of steak. It's delicious and filling when it's fresh. Similarly, when it's fresh and in its untainted state, the Word of God is a rich, filling, and nutritious meal for the spirit. Now, as we grow in faith, our appetite becomes more mature, and we start to seek complex, more deeper flavors. Imagine, you go from something like a kind of a cheaper burger to like a nice steak. You get a little more richness, there are a little more developed flavors. And one of the verses that kind of comes to my mind when I think of this idea is 1 Corinthians 3, and it says, "But I, brothers, could not address you as spiritual people, but as people of the flesh, as infants in Christ. I fed you with milk, not for solid food, for you were not ready for it." And I love that because I think of children, right? It starts with milk, then they get like mashed peas or whatever they eat, I don't really know. They get like the mashed peas, grapes, whatever they got, and then you start to get to where you're a young kid, and then it's grilled cheese and hot dogs every day, all day, right? Kind of the basic, simple stuff. Then when you get older, all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I love asparagus, right? The last thing you expected. And so, as you grow, your taste buds, they develop and they get more mature, and you seek these deeper, more complex flavors. And so, as we walk with God, we seek answers to deeper questions, more intense relationship with Him. That's our seeking for that deeper flavor. And sometimes these questions, they can be painful ones, right? They're not easy to swallow at times, the answers that we get from these questions. And these are questions that have plagued humanity since its inception. They're the things that bring us together and tear us apart. These great philosophical questions that the Bible can help us tackle, but we have to be willing to accept the answers even if they're difficult. Because becoming the person that God calls us to be, facing these big challenges, these deep questions, it's not simple. That's why they're complex flavors and they're harder to process. But the beauty is the search for that heartier meal, that search for that deeper connection. That's where the meaning is. So even though it's difficult and more complex, it's more to chew on, you get more out of it too. Now sadly, there are those who shy away from these complex flavors. They find the meal that we're enjoying bitter in its original state. And so, in a desire to make it more broadly palatable and easy to enjoy, they attempt to water down this meal, the meal being the Word of God. And they do this by tossing out elements of God's Word that they see as obsolete in a modern era. or they do this by altering the words, telling us that God said this when he actually meant that, or misrepresenting the Lord himself, right? Saying that Jesus was X, Jesus was Y, Jesus was Z, just completely misrepresenting his message and who he is. And when you water down something, that moisture, we already know what that does to meat, it spoils it. So, it spoils the integrity. So the meat, God's word, it's only nourishing and positive in its pristine condition. As soon as you start watering it down, add that moisture, bacteria will grow and it spoils, right? And if it spoils and is ingested, it becomes this toxic danger to the soul. It sickens the spirit and it steals away future appetite. I'm sure everyone has seen stories about cult leaders, becoming popular, and then all these people start following them, and then the cult falls apart and they fall away. And then you hear so many of them, their spirits are broken. They can't, bring themselves to love God or to move forward in their spiritual development because they've been so stunted by this, false doctrine. So we see there, right, the sickness that happens because of the spoiled food, this altered, doctrine. It makes you, sick, and it ruins your appetite for the Spirit, for the Word in the future. So that's why it's so important not to allow, people to be teaching things like that, to be really strict on that, to be that sustaining force for God's Word. Because, when it sickens the spirit and steals away the appetite, it ruins the integrity of not only the meal, but of the spiritual body too, right? We're trying to come together unified in God's Word, but if we're, bickering over big things and people are just being, loose and fast with interpretations, it's like we really got to be, diving in and studying. That's why studying the Word is so important, to really understand it. Like any good cook, you want to know what you're cooking with, And so, to keep this integrity of this meal we want to share, we must be the sustaining force. So we must be the salt of the earth. Next, we're going to move to, thank you, Josh, most attractive easel around. Next is A for appetizing. The only thing more horribly scary than speaking in public is spelling in public, let me tell you. And so those, I'm sure everyone here loves salty snacks, right? Does anyone have any favorite examples of a salty snack they enjoy? Josh, I know you got one. Cashews are good. Cashews are good. Can't go wrong with pretzel rods. Those are fun, right? Yeah. Can't go with those. Oh yeah, big time. Tortilla chips. And there are these. People don't like corn nuts. I don't like. Some people love them. Some people hate them. I love the ranch flavored corn nuts. Keep me away from them. I'll eat them back. I can't do it. Salt. It's an essential part of a meal. It can determine whether a food is good or a food turns out bad. And as someone that's not good at cooking, it's usually the latter, not the former. So it's definitely good that I have a lot of salt on hand because it can really help. As salt of the earth, we're called to be appetizing as well. We're called to improve whatever meal or situation that we're called to with our actions and our speech. We have the gift of the gospel. It brings zest and depth into our lives, and so we're called in Mark 16:15 to go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to all creation. So think about it like an Uber Eats delivery guy. You've got this wonderful zesty meal and you're just going to deliver it to everyone you got, tip or not, right? And so even though apparently if you don't tip them, then you get mad, so tip them. Oscar does that now, so he told me. And so, we must be palatable. We must be sought after, appetizing. People have to want to enjoy what we have to offer because, we are God's marketing team. That's what we are. So we have to be those delivery vessels. The salt is good. The actual product is good. God's Word is good. That we don't have to worry about. But we have to worry about the packaging, how it comes in, right? Because everyone knows, right, the right advertisements or box art can really make a difference. If you got two products, one next to the other, they're both basically the same. It's the one that looks the prettiest that's going to win out. So we have to be, focusing even on our bad days, on days when we're feeling short with people or we're feeling hungry, tired, you name it. If you exposed yourself to half of the apartment complex accidentally in the morning, no matter what goes on in your day, you need to be appetizing to people and to be in a good mood, to be loving to one another, because we are the delivery vessels for God's Word. And so we need to make sure that it's a good product, so we treat it like it by advertising it well. Then we go out L for life. This is our little thought. All right, so the L is for life defending. So salt is an antibacterial, an antiseptic, and a disinfectant. And it's a painful one, obviously. We've all heard the term salt in the wound, right? It's a painful one, but it's effective. It dries out the wounds, which allows, or doesn't allow the bacteria and other infections to grow. And if we think about our spiritual development, right, transformation, cleansing ourselves and our spirits and growth, these are things that are difficult, right? Think about a salt in a wound. It's painful, but it's actually working on you for the better. And so, it's difficult to do, with God, but it's impossible to do alone. That's why we need to have that relationship with God, because, if we look at our lives, our mistakes open us up like wounds, right? The sins that we commit, the things that are shortcomings, they open us up to the world. And so if we leave ourselves open, if we leave that wound to not be tended to, then what happens is these infections of the soul, whether it's resentment, greed, anger, jealousy, these can grow to toxic levels inside of us. And so we're called to be salt to one another, so a cleansing force in one another's lives. I'm sure, each one of us has had to deal with the uncomfortable but necessary situation where you got a friend that might be going down a bad path and you have to figure out how to tactfully lead them back, or to say, correct an action, say, oh, that wasn't exactly great what you did. And we have to be potent in that. We have to be sharp, because if you think about salt that isn't exactly potent, what is it really good for? It's just putting dirt in a wound instead of something that's actually going to do any good. And so we need to make sure that we're kind of keeping each other on the right path and helping one another out. And also to be something that is a cleansing force of benefit. If someone's dealing with something that's really difficult, it's really bogging down their lives, you can help come in and clean it up a little bit, help them kind of organize their life, be a shoulder to cry on, be an ear to listen. So, being this force of cleansing and life aid to people and defending their, their spiritual and their physical life is an essential part of being the salt of the earth. And then lastly, we have tea.
Tasty.
I was debating that one, but then I went with appetizing for the other ones. So, salt is topical. So think about cooking, right? If you got something that you're cooking that tastes bland, usually it can be rectified by just a little bit of salt. Salt is versatile and topical, so no matter what food, you can usually add a little bit of zip, and no matter what stage of cooking, you can usually add salt. So think about all these different kind of things like soup, chicken, fries, corn. All these have different elements, textures, different flavors. Thank you, Josh. All these things, they're widely different. Soup and corn are very different things, but yet salt can work through each and every one of these different things. And it can all these different dishes can all be benefited by a simple shake of a salt shaker. And we as followers of Christ are to emulate that. And so we never know what's coming our way next, the next place, event, or person that's going to come into our lives. We never know what next will be on our plate. But just like salt, we need to be topical. So able to sprinkle the gift of the gospel into a wide variety of situations, no matter what flavor profile or situation we find. We must be appealing as well, able to mesh with a multitude of tastes. That's what being topical is all about, being able to kind of fit yourself into whatever situation there might be. Because you never know what areas people need help with, especially with the gospel. And just as God meets us where we are, we must be ready to assist our brothers and sisters wherever they are in the cooking process, right? Even if they're just getting everything together, maybe they haven't put it in the oven yet. That's what's beautiful about salt. You can add it pretty much any time. So we can be wherever people need us to be. And with that, Josh, I'm letting you off the hook.
Hey, Josh.
Thank you. So with that, I'd like to finish up with, the Bible is our cookbook. It teaches us to create rich and flavorful relationships with God, His people, in our everyday lives. We as the salt of the earth, we're essential ingredients to God's wonderful recipe. And I love to remember that we are an essential part. This is not just God's story. This is God's story that He's woven us into. Now we have a part to play in it. It's a beautiful thing, if you've been in high school and been picked for a play or something like that, it's nice to be a participant in something like that, something bigger than ourselves. So let's remember that we're part of something bigger than ourselves, and not allow our flavors to become indistinguishable from the surrounding meal. Instead, let us take this miraculous taste of salvation and put it with every single person that we meet. Let them walk away with a taste in their mouths of of joy and love and wanting to experience more that God has to offer in everything that we do, and spread the love of Christ one grain at a time. Let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for this great country that we live in. Lord, I would like to thank you for allowing us to be your hands and your feet, Lord, to be the salt to cleanse when people need it, to be a sustaining force to keep your word pure and holy, and to be there for people no matter what as a topical solution for them, helping them and affirming them whenever they need it. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.